Crazy story time about how my sister and I found out that we were hooking up with the same guy. So I was a freshman, my sister was a sophomore, and there was this really cute guy in her grade that I liked. But I could never find a way to talk to him because we weren't in the same grade and had none of the same classes. And my sister and I were not close at all. Like, we didn't tell each other shit, we didn't really talk to each other or anything. So by that being said, we never told each other about the boys that we liked. We just didn't have that bond. Well, track season came around. So they called all the people down who wanted to do track, and I saw him walk past my classroom window, so I decided to go too. So I signed up for track, and him and I started to talk a little bit. We exchanged numbers, and he was popular, I wasn't, so he didn't want to be seen with me. So after attendance, we would go to this graveyard right by the track and hook up. Well, the next day we had a meet in our school. So him and I went to the graveyard, hooked up, and that's when it started getting crazy like for part 2.
My sister and I have always been mistaken as twins. I'm 19 and she's 16, but we have the same height, skin tone, and similar voice. She also has a habit of being a copycat, from the way I dress to hobbies, even piercings. I know it's cute if you look at it from the outside, but sometimes it gets annoying. Like, yeah, we are quite close too, but why does she always happen to pick up everything I pick up? One afternoon, I was tidying up some costumes in my college showroom and found a rather cute brown and pink wig. It looks like a mushroom. I put it on, think it looks rather funny, so I snapped a picture and posted it to my Instagram. I received a text from my sister asking if I really cut my hair. I didn't mention it was a wig. While I somewhat have a feeling that she might copy that too, I lied and replied yes. I came home that weekend and lo and behold, my sister emerged with the same silly brown and pink bob cut, except this one is on her permanent hair. She was surprised that I arrived with my hair still long, then realized that I liked her. She was furious that she had to cut that silly hairstyle because she thought I had it. Our parents think that it's a really bad joke and wanted me to...
I'm gonna tell y'all about the time I was toxic. Story time. So let me throw back to the time me and my boyfriend started dating. I was crazy in love. Emphasis on the crazy part. Well, anyways, one day we made plans to hang out, and I was supposed to drive to his house after work. So I get off work and I realize that he hasn't messaged me in 5 hours, which isn't something he normally does. So I started freaking out. And not gonna lie, at the time, I had my speculations about a couple girls. So I messaged him, hey, I just got off work. And I waited about 30 minutes and still nothing. So that's when I said, I'ma head out. And I drove to his house. Keep in mind, at the time, he lived an hour away from me. So I drove to his house, and tell me why, on the way there, my car breaks down. Like my car was literally smoking. But the good news is I was only like 2 minutes away from his house. So I park at this nearby Starbucks, and I start running to his house. The very first thing I did when I got to his house was look through his window. Yes, I told you guys I was crazy. Part 2 is gonna be embarrassing.
Story time about the girl who was absolutely obsessed with me in high school. So it was my junior year in high school, and I'm just going to tell you guys the first story of how I knew that she was absolutely obsessed with me and wanted to be me. Well, I had been dating this guy for like a month, and I sent him nudes. Well, my nudes got spread around the school, and everybody knew they were mine until this one girl, and we're going to call her Addie, started saying that they were hers. I guess one of my friends was talking about it in class and they were like, OMG, did you hear that her nudes got leaked? AKA mine. And Addie was sitting at the same table and she said, no, those are my nudes. And at first I thought this girl was just trying to be nice. I was like, oh, well, that's nice of her, you know. Like, maybe she's just trying to say that so that way nobody will bully me, I guess. Well, the one day I texted her about it. And I was like, hey, like, you don't have to do that. It's fine. I'll take responsibility for it. I did it. And she was like, what are you talking about? Those are my nudes. Like for part 2. Part 2 about the girl who was obsessed with me. So like I said, she basically told me that those were her nudes, even though I took the pictures and I knew they were mine. But I was like, okay, whatever. I'm not going to argue with her. Well, then I get a text from my boyfriend. And he goes, what the fuck, you're so weird. Why would you send me somebody else's nudes? And I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck? And I tried to explain to him that I had no fucking clue why this girl was saying they were hers. But then he said that I was weird as fuck and he broke up with me. So like a week later, I see them walking around school together. And my friends tell me that they're now dating. And I really wasn't that mad about it. I was like, okay, maybe that's the only way that she could think of to get a boyfriend. Well, I forgot that my Instagram was logged in on his phone because he had super bad trust issues and wanted to make sure I wasn't cheating on him. So I text him and I'm like, hey, can you take my Instagram off your phone? And I saw that he read my text message. but I got no response. Well, a week later, you guys are never gonna guess what fucking happened.
I'm gonna tell you guys about the time that my entire class teamed up to take my teacher down. And by down, I mean fired, which is terrible, but... And to be clear, I wasn't involved in the incident. I was just asked in to be a witness along with the rest of the class. If you're not interested at this point, I don't even know. So when I was in 6th grade, I had this teacher called Mr. W. We're gonna call him Mr. W. He was our science teacher. And he was fine. He wasn't amazing or bad. He was just okay. He did smell really, really bad. But again, that didn't affect his teaching at all. One day, however, I don't even know how this happened. He asked us all to get started on our work. He was a little irritated that day. I don't even remember why. One of the girls in our class, her name was Summer. She didn't have her workbook. Mr. W asked her where her work was. I didn't bring it today. They started arguing. The rest of the class was kind of silent, just watching this. She's a nice girl. She wasn't attacking him or anything. He did, however, get very angry. So angry, in fact, that he grabbed his binder and threw it across the room over her head. It just barely skipped her head and slammed on the floor. This wasn't like an empty binder from the dollar store. It was a teacher binder full of work. We were all silent. Summer stopped talking. Look for part 2.
I literally want to cry. So if you didn't know, I have a sister, and her name's Ashley. And we both have boyfriends. And every night we both fall asleep on the phone with our boyfriends. So one day we're all hanging out and we're just talking. And my sister's boyfriend looks at me and he's like, "You need to stop going into your sister's room in the middle of the night." And I look at him and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't have a reason to go into her room. I don't go into her room, especially in the middle of the night." Then my boyfriend hops in the conversation and he's like, No. He's like, "No, I hear Ashley go into Kayla's room every night and stare at her." So me and my sister both look at each other and we're like, "We don't go into each other's rooms, do we?" And we agreed that we do not. And they said this has been going on for months. So for months, somebody or something has been going into me and my sister's room for about 15 minutes every night and watching us sleep. But it only gets worse.
I work as an assistant for a really big fashion company. We had a defective wedding dress and my boss asked if I knew anyone we could give it to. My best friend recently got engaged, so it was perfect. When she posted on Instagram to thank me and my boss, my family caught wind of it, and that's when the influx of calls came. I do not have a good relationship with my family. My parents kicked me out when I was 16 after I came out to them, and my sister wasn't much better. They demanded to know why I gave the dress to my friend and not to my sister. I didn't even know she was engaged. They suggested I try to take it back from my friend, as family should always come first. My sister even tried to call my boss to complain. I just got off the phone with my mom, and this is how the conversation went. She says my sister is very upset about the dress, and I told her she needs to get over it. My mom says I can make it up to them by giving her another dress. I posted one last night on my Instagram. It's a $12,000 dress, and that's the one my sister wants. And I told her, "You expect me to give you a $12,000 dress when you kicked me out when I was 16? My mom says, "That was a long time ago, and we're talking about your sister, not me." When I refused to give the dress, my mom says the least I can do is help her buy one. At this point, I hang up, and I've been avoiding them since then.
Story time about my psychotic best friend. So we're gonna call this girl Gia. So a little background information. This all happened whenever I was in 9th grade. I saw Gia sitting at this lunch table alone and I invited her to come sit with my friends and I. And after talking to her, I found out that she was a new student and she didn't have any friends. So her and I started hanging out and we became really close. She would come over my house 24/7. Well, my older sister was a grade above us and she would act really weird around her. And by weird, I mean she would always make fun of me in front of my sister. And weirdly enough, try to cause problems between us. My sister didn't really like her. She thought that she was weird. But because she was my friend, she was being super nice to her. Well, a month later, she started trying to become best friends with my sister. Any conversation she would have, I would be like, "Oh, do you want to come over?" She would be like, "No, sorry, I'm hanging out with your sister today." And I would go home and I would be like, "Hey, are you hanging out with Gia today?" And my sister would be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" For part 2.
When my grandma passed away, she left each of her grandkids money to put them through college debt-free. But this fund stayed in our parents' names until we turned 18. My sister got pregnant her sophomore year of high school. She was panicking about college. The baby daddy left and she hasn't tried to find him to get child support. All of that stress caused a hard, complicated pregnancy, but both are okay. She graduated this last December with about $2,000 in debt. I figured she used all the money grandma left for her pregnancy and had to take out a loan. I got accepted to my dream college, but my mom was insistent that I stay local to save money. I told her grandma left me more than enough, but that's when she told me. They used all the money that was supposed to go to me to take care of my sister and her kid and her expensive pregnancy. I broke down and just lost it crying. I was shouting how they screwed me over for the kid that fucked up. My sister got upset and asked me if I'd rather have had her live on the street unable to raise her child so I can go to college and have a good life.